giving you the insider takes and the big picture view on the Dawgs. This is On the Beat, presented by Ingles, with DawgNation insider Mike Griffith and Cody Chaffins.
Happy Monday to you, Cody Chaffins, Mike Griffith with you, coming to you from Athens, just outside Georgia's football facility. And boy, you can still kind of feel the aftershocks of what happened down the street on Saturday night.
Yeah, I saw a gif of Gunner Stockton holding Bevo over his head. I thought that was pretty appropriate. It's kind of fun to see all the Gunner love right now, and certainly for Georgia to put high-dollar Texas in their place. Kirby Smart with a post-game comment. What did he say? They write checks, or they want to hit here instead of write checks?
Not worried about paychecks, yeah.
I'll tell you what, that was a message to the Texas Longhorns.
Yes, we're going to talk a lot about that. We'll talk about Gunner Stockton and the Heisman, hear the latest from what happened inside the press conference today. We got a special guest on the show today. Ladd McConkey joins Mike to talk about Georgia, talk about what he is doing now. He is an all-time fan favorite. Excited to hear from Ladd McConkey. We've also got our boots on the ground. We'll do a little TMZ coming up later in the show. We see all the celebrities we spotted at the Georgia and Texas game. And, of course, Mike will have the Mike's 30,000-foot view. We'll talk about Alabama falling, Texas A&M surviving, and what it all says about the college football playoff and the SEC championship. So a ton to get to in today's program. But, Mike, we will start with kind of the headline. Texas found out what makes Georgia different.
Yeah, they really did. You know, the way Georgia went down and scored on their two opening possessions to go up 14-3, Cody. 4-4 on third down conversions. Mike Bobo really having a good game. And then you saw that Georgia defense really assert themselves, really took the life out of the Texas Longhorns. They played 3 games against Georgia now, and they've rushed for a total of 83 yards.
83 over 3 games.
23 Saturday night. So, I mean, this Georgia football team, it's just rounding into form. It's like, are these the same guys that struggled against Austin Peay?
Yeah, you could always tell Kirby Smart liked the way the team was working. He just said they were young, and it's the thing we go back to time and time again. Like, when we hear Kirby Smart talk, like, sometimes you just have to listen to what he says. And he says at the beginning of it, hey, man, we're young, but I love this football team. Well, it turns out, yeah, they were young. They've just gotten a lot more reps. A lot of, the resilience has been there throughout. He likes the DNA of the team. They've just gotten better on the field.
Yeah, they have. And you look at the numbers, they're rounding into form now. You know, the defense bringing that scoring average down. The run-stop defense starting to look like it used to. It's not number 1 in the nation like it used to be, but top 20 with the schedule that they play, and then just the maturation, really, of Gunner Stockton. I mean, the guy accounted for 5 touchdowns against a really good Texas defense, and only threw 5 incomplete passes.
And getting after the quarterback much better as well. Yeah, there's so many things. But Kirby Smart after the game, the quote that went viral is the one Mike was talking about, where Kirby Smart says, we just enjoy physicality. We like getting after it here at Georgia. And these guys got to buy in. We're going Navy SEAL training. We want to go to the water and see who can last the longest, who's going to tap out, who's going to ring that bell. That was one of those things he talked about after the game. Physicality is very important to Kirby Smart. And I think that's one of those things that sets Georgia apart. We talked a couple of weeks ago on this show about the analytics and how, everybody has that book, right? Everybody has that. Everybody has 5 stars now because you can pay them. There's still something that sets Georgia apart from all of those teams, and the physicality is the thing.
Well, you got to know what you're signing up for. It reminds me when I signed up for the military, right? I mean, there were certain things that appealed to me as a young guy, and for me, it was airborne, right? I wanted to wear that beret. I wanted to jump out of an airplane. I wanted to do something different, something extra. Yeah, I knew the Air Force might prepare me better for real life, and there were other services that maybe would have got me more money, but I felt like being a part of something special. And you get the sense, Cody, that these guys that come to Georgia, they know it's going to be harder here than it is anywhere. There's going to be more of a grind. There's going to be more competition. You're going to be training among the elite. You're going to be dog-cussed and challenged by Kirby Smart on that microphone. Are you good enough to accept the challenge? And that was the mode that Kirby was in the post-game when he was telling all those guys, hey, a lot of those guys were having better offers from Texas. But he says, hey, you want to come here? Did you see what you just saw? You want to be a part of the 10? Or do you want to be a part of the 35? I'm sure Justin Terry ordered a pizza with all sorts of toppings on it, but I don't know how good it tasted, and I don't know how much that extra money's worth when you're on the wrong side of the scoreboard and you're not getting developed like you are as a Georgia Bulldog.
So Kirby goes viral for the comments he made after the game. He had another viral comment inside the press conference today, and the big question was, so, what if your practices are too hard for some guys and they want to transfer? Listen to what Kirby had to say about that.
We schedule them. The ones that want to leave, we schedule them. we try to get them on the schedule, because when they want to leave because they're not physical, that means they're probably going to a place that's not physical. We like those places. We like to play them. We prefer them, actually, if you can get them on the schedule. So it's one of those deals that you don't run from hard in life. You run from hard in life, you'll find more hard.
Shots fired at all of these teams where guys have transferred to, and as he's saying that now, I'm going through my head, oh, they had a couple go to Texas A&M. Is that a shot at Texas A&M? They had a couple go here, there, and all these other places. But Kirby says, yeah, bring on those guys, because if it's too hard for you here, it's going to be too hard.
Well, I mean, Georgia just completed the SEC schedule, and they went 7-1. And really, Cody, remarkable. I ran those numbers today. I asked Kirby about it in the press conference. 37-3 over a 5-year span. I said, that's pretty good. Let me go back and look. Nick Saban had a 37-3 stretch.
Wow.
That's it.
Right.
Spurrier was 36-4 at his height. Fulmer was 35-5. You go back to 1992 when they did this 8-game schedule model, and the books are closed on it now. We're going to a 9-game schedule next year. So history is going to reflect this period between 92 and 2025, and it's going to show you that the Kirby Smart dynasty, that 5-year period, 37-3, 2 national titles, measures up to what Alabama did with Kirby Smart a part of that staff.
Yeah, and there's a reason that Nick Saban got out of the coaching game, and Kirby Smart has been able to adapt. And he talked about these last couple of years hadn't been what that earlier one was, just because of the NIL and the ease to transfer.
Well, and you added Texas and Oklahoma to the league too. And oh, by the way, Georgia had a home with Texas in the midst of that, and of course that nightmare schedule last year with 4 road games, and what they play, 6 top 10 teams or something stupid like that. So the Dogs went through the front door. They did it during the portal years. They did it with heavier attrition than we've ever seen in the history of college football. 15 guys drafted, 20 guys hit the portal the same year, 6 former starters. They rebuild, they go 15-0. You look at this last rebuild, 17 guys off last year's team in the NFL, 20 guys hit the portal. I want to say maybe 6 of those guys were starters as well. And here's Georgia 7-1. Ranked number 4 in the nation.
Really, really remarkable. So Texas saw that part, that physicality that sets Georgia apart from everybody else. Another thing that sets Georgia apart from everybody else, Gunnar Stockton. Gunnar had a great day. Again, did it against another top 10 team. It was Ole Miss a couple of weeks ago where he looked incredible. He had just as many incompletions as touchdowns responsible for in the game against Texas. So now all the talk has turned to Gunnar for Heisman.
Well, why not? You take a look at some of the other candidates. Here's the thing. Fernando Mendoza, that guy Georgia pursued in the portal, ended up at Indiana. And you look at Julian Saint at Ohio State. Look, these guys aren't beating anybody. Ohio State, I think Brandon Adams had the tweet. He said, can you imagine sweating out a 14-7 win over Texas? That's what Ohio State did. There was no sweating in Sanford Stadium. It was 35-10. You want to compare scores? You want to compare schedules? I mean, who's Indiana beating? They're eking out wins against Iowa. Teams like, I just, there's no comparison. The SEC, it's like they're in their own little universe over here, and then the Big Ten has their world where, nobody brings the same level of consistent competition from week to week that we see in this league. So I think it's a great time for the SEC, even if maybe the College Football Playoff Committee is not recognizing it as such.
So Gunnar Stockton, with all he's done, it really has hyped up. And the thing that's good for Gunnar is that everybody's seen it. The numbers hadn't come out on TV yet of Georgia and Texas. It may be out by the time this airs, but all eyes have been on Gunnar in that Ole Miss game, in that Texas game. Everybody's very aware of what Gunnar Stockton's been able to do. It's something that was talked about in the press conference today. Kirby Smart said, I'm not going to go, he's not going to, lobby for him, but he did give us those traits that Gunnar has that is exactly what the Heisman's looking for. Take a listen.
What I will say is he embodies everything about that award: resiliency, character, determination. All those words that embody a Heisman Trophy winner, Gunnar's got it. And he's done it on the biggest stages, in front of the biggest audiences, against some of the toughest competition at a really high level. So, he's playing well, and he's playing to make the people around him better. And his value to our team is immense.
The numbers are the numbers. I see stuff everywhere about all these guys at different schools. Their teams are pushing for them to be on the Heisman, all that. Gunnar doesn't care about that stuff at all, but just me being, one of his best friends and his roommate, I see it every day at practice. We're playing in the biggest games in the country, and he's dominating. So it's kind of crazy that he's not talked about more. I don't know what goes into that or who makes those decisions, but if I'm turning on tape, that's one of the guys that I'm inviting.
Get you a friend like Oscar Delp, right, who's going to get out there and, Gunner's not going to speak up for himself. He's never going to want the spotlight on himself, but Oscar's not afraid to go out there and put his name out there.
Yeah, remember Kobe Young was the one that went out there earlier this year and kind of explained it. I like the way Gunner's teammates take up for him, and here's what's going to be tough. Nobody's going to pay attention to the Charlotte game in terms of Heisman Trophy voters, maybe not even poll voters. But when Georgia plays Georgia Tech, this is where my mind goes.
Okay.
Haynes King's on the other side of the ball. He's one spot behind Gunner in the Heisman odds. You don't think those Georgia defenders are going to be motivated to try to stop Haynes King so that Gunner Stockton puts up? I mean, that's the kind of leader that Gunner Stockton is. Everybody's in on this guy because of how hard he works and how tough he is. Those hits that we see him take, I mean, obviously we respect it, but the players respect it. They don't want some pretty boy quarterback. They like that Gunner brings the lunch pail and takes the same kind of hits they do game in and game out.
You talk about taking those hits. It was interesting after the game. I talked to Gunner. I said, did you have a little, extra motivation with the way the Texas game ended last year? You took the big hit, had to come off the field. He said, no, of course, downplays it a little bit. I said, did you watch that play on tape? He said, no, I skipped over that one.
Yeah, I would imagine so. He probably doesn't remember it, which is probably just as well. Ferocious hit from Makuba, a guy that's playing really well in the NFL right now. But it's just part of the Georgia story. It is somewhat of an iconic moment for Gunner Stockton, the guy that it was like a kamikaze run. I mean, he literally sacrificed his body, his soul, his heart. I mean, it's really amazing. He was doing a post-game interview 10 minutes later. I bet he doesn't remember that either, Cody.
No, he got to celebrate with his team. It'll be a memory he can watch back on tape as we got the leaf blowers as they clean up Georgia basketball taking on FAMU inside of Stegman Coliseum tonight, by the way. All right, so one of the other things that sets Georgia apart, we talked about the physicality, talk about Gunner Stockton, but I think one of the other things, too, is the focus, and that's going to be a key this week as Georgia takes on Charlotte. Kirby Smart's not going to let this team not stay focused, even when it is a team they're clearly going to beat.
Well, they're going to have goals, and they're going to have things they want to accomplish. There's going to be certain guys that he wants to get a certain number of reps. I mean, obviously, some of the guys with bumps and bruises, you wonder if he holds those guys out as a precaution, tries to get them a little rested, a little bit more healthy. Remember, Georgia didn't have that last year before Georgia Tech. They had to play Tennessee. I think this is a big advantage for Georgia to play Charlotte the week before Tech.
I do wonder, as we get closer to practice, Kirby Smart mentioned about keeping his guys focused and having the fire, passion, and energy. This seems like one of those weeks Kirby may be extra fiery on that microphone at practice just to make sure everybody's dialed in.
Well, you don't want to lose the momentum that you've built, and there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to get a lot of opportunities, but not until the starters take care of business. And that's going to be a motivation too. Get out there, play clean, get those points on the scoreboard so guys like Ryan Puglisi can get some reps. Dwight Phillips can get some reps. Maybe some of those seniors that have stuck around the program get out there on the football field and have a chance to play in front of their families in what may or may not be the last game at Sanford Stadium.
Right, of course, could get a playoff game. All right, we're going to take our first break here on the beat. Maybe we'll get the leaf blowers out of here by the time we come back. But on the other side of this break, we've got a huge guest as Ladd McConkey will sit down, talk about Georgia, talk about his pro career, all with Mike Griffith. It's coming up. It's On the Beat, presented by Ingles.
And it's the first title in team history. Here it is. And lightning strikes twice, back-to-back championships. 3 in a row. They've done it again.
Where did those cheese come from? Relax. They're from Ingles.
Can I eat this now?
When we think to those back-to-back national championships for Georgia, there may be a player no higher on the list of beloved Georgia Bulldogs than Chatsworth, Georgia's own Ladd McConkey.
You got to like it, he's the lowest rated recruit in that class. A lot of people said it was a wasted scholarship. He actually redshirted. The first time he dressed for a game, they flew to Missouri. He never even got in the game. He froze on the sidelines. All his family's there, everybody watching on TV. Ladd once told me that was his favorite game. I said, what do you mean? He said, after that game, I was so motivated to work. That was never going to happen again. Not the answer that I expected from Ladd about his favorite game back then. He said he has his different favorite game now, though.
And he's doing his thing with the LA Chargers. His game has translated to the next level like not a lot of people thought he would. He sat down with Mike Griffith to talk about Georgia and talk about being a pro football player.
So I click on my ESPN and there's a fantasy football update on Ladd McConkey. Oh my God, the ankle. I guess I'll start there, Ladd. You know, you're out there to win football games. I've heard Brock Bowers talk about it. You know, it kills him because he never wants to disappoint anybody. But this whole fantasy football part of it for NFL players, what's that experience been like for you, especially with all the people you got, I guess, back home and friends that, you know, I guess your dad told me everybody fights to pick you in the league around there.
Yeah.
What's the dynamic like? I mean, do you ever look at that and just shake your head?
Definitely shake my head. There'll be people out there that live, breathe, and die by fantasy football. But I always tell everybody, all my fantasy owners, I'm giving you my all. You'll get my all every week. So I'm doing my best out there. I want to score as many points. I want to score more points for myself than y'all do. So
Right. Yeah, no doubt about it. It is a lot of fun, and you are a fun player to watch. You know, I guess that's one thing that I don't want to say I'm surprised. I guess I would ask you though. I mean, you were dynamic at Georgia, but you know, a lot of people say, "Oh, there's a lot of fast guys in the NFL." Did you surprise yourself a little bit? I mean, I know you're a fast guy on the clock, but you know, watching you run around NFL guys like you did in college, it doesn't seem to be much different.
Um, I don't know if surprise myself is the right word. I believed I knew I could do this. But a big thing is just like trusting your speed, like hitting it, playing fast. There's a lot of fast guys, but if you're not playing fast on the field, then you're not using your skill set. So I just try to play fast, react on the fly, and I think that's when I'm playing my best football.
What's it been like playing for Coach Harbaugh? I mean, that's a guy that you competed against in college, and you know, from the outside in, you know, he strikes a lot of people. He's an interesting guy. Played the game. Any similarities to Kirby Smart? I guess other than them having the same birth date.
They have the same birthday?
They do. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't I didn't even realize that. That's a bad player by me. But no, I feel like they're really different in a lot of ways. But I guess the similarities is like they both find a way to win, and they both know how to get their guys to buy in and really like dive into the culture and what the teams are about. So different in their own ways and how they get that to happen. But they're both winners. They're both competitors, and they both do a good job of bringing the team together.
We know the NFL season's longer than the college season. We also know that Georgia is reputed to have the toughest practices in college, according to a lot of NFL scouts. What's it like trying to manage your body and your health in the NFL versus Georgia's? How would you compare the two?
I remember last year we had like our bye week, week 5. I was sitting there thinking, I was like, okay, we just played 4 games bye week. I was like, now I have a and now I have a college season, so it's like a lot more games, but get a little more. You get an off day here and there in the NFL, and they do a really good job like taking care of your body. We only have there's only 53 guys that can play on Sundays on the active or whatever. So it's like you don't have 120. You don't have the scout team over there. You don't have just the extra body. So there's a little element to that too.
And what about this? I mean, it's an obligatory quote, but it's always important when talking to former Georgia players to ask them about the preparation and when you leave Georgia, you know, in terms of being ready for the NFL. What are some things that you noted that you that you were already on par with as an NFL player coming out of Georgia, and what were things you had to learn?
Yeah, they prepared me in a ton of ways, and I think one of the biggest thing is everything matters, in the way that Georgia approached meetings, the way that Georgia approached walkthroughs in the NFL. You might rep something, on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and you don't rep it again until Sunday. So those walkthrough reps or game reps, they matter, and I think we kind of approached it like that at Georgia too. So just being able to understand that and been honed in on that and locked in on that, I think that's one of the biggest things that they did for me going to this next level.
If there's anything that you know now, as an NFL player, an NFL star, that you could tell the young Ladd McConkey?
Oh
What advice or what message would you give that young guy?
man, that's tough. I feel like mm, don't. I would say don't let like a single thing, whether it be good or bad, like don't hold. I don't know. Don't hold on to that. Like sometimes I get caught up on it. If I was at Georgia, I had a bad game, had a bad play, then you start looking later and like, well, how is this going to affect me later? Just be in the moment, be present, be where your feet are. If you just put your head down and grind, it's all going to work out just how it's supposed to.
You got a new favorite game yet? Last time we talked favorite game, it was a game in Missouri you froze and didn't play in. Do you got an NFL game that's replaced that, or are you still holding on to that moment
Uh,
in Missouri?
I mean, that was I joke because it was my first game traveling. It was an awesome game, but I was freezing to death. It was also terrible, but that was a cool one. Um, Man, I don't know. I guess college, life when we played Tennessee, that was a cool one. That was probably one of my favorite ones in Sanford. They were number one, we were number three. Came in and whooped them. That's one of my favorite ones for sure.
And remember, us media guys had you number one, lad. It was that college football playoff committee that had Tennessee number one. The
No
eight
doubt.
the media guys had that. So you grew up a Tennessee fan. You played at Georgia. Do you still pull for the Vols a little bit, or is it just Georgia all the way? That orange
Nah,
completely.
absolutely not. No, I'm Georgia through and through.
Okay. I didn't know. I didn't know if maybe you've
Yeah,
forgiven
no,
them.
no, 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 no more, no more. Done with that.
How much do you get to watch Georgia? And if you have gotten to see this year's team a little bit, I guess they got a guy in Gunnar Stockton that, I was one of those guys that underestimated him myself. How much do you get to see, and what do you think about this year's Georgia team from what you've seen and watched?
Whether I'm have my phone right there in between meetings and trying to sneak the score in or ask somebody what the score is when we're having a walkthrough or something. The time difference kind of messes with me. But no, they've been playing good. I feel like they just found a way to win. Not always started off the hottest, but when it comes down to crunch time, they just found a way to win. And Gunner's leading those guys, and you can tell those guys are really rallying behind him and believe in him and trust him, and really those guys just love each other. So you can see it how they play and how excited they get for one another. So I'm riding with the dogs the whole way this year.
Any Gunner anecdotes? I mean, I guess your time with him would have been short, but you probably remember when he came in. He would have been, I think he'd have been a four stringer back then, right?
Yeah, I played Gunner in high school.
Oh.
His when he was freshman and sophomore, I was junior senior. I won't tell you how the score went for my sake, but that was that was my first impression of him. I knew he was a stud back then.
I know last year, I think I read somewhere that you and Brock were in a little bit of a competition for yardage. I think you ended up having more yardage in the same amount of games, if I remember. He set all these records and everything, but do you still stay in touch with Brock? And what's that friendship like if you do?
Yeah, for sure. Season's hard. You don't get to talk every day and talk too much, but just check in on them. It's always good getting to see them. When we play them and when they come here, when we go there. But yeah, just check up on him, make sure he's doing good. And Brock's an awesome guy.
It seems like every game there's a Georgia guy or two or three or six, in the case of the
Yeah.
Packers and the Eagles, on the other team. Is that it? Do you make sure to talk to those guys after every game? Is that a definite seek out? Is there a fraternity building between all the Georgia guys in the NFL? What's that like? What can you tell me about those relationships?
Yeah, 100%. Whether it's pregame, like this past game, I got to see Broad and Darnell, so that was awesome. And then whether it's like trading, switching jerseys after the game, or just like catching up with them, saying what's up, how proud I am of them, that I love them. It's always good to see those guys because we had some battles on the field, team runs, bloody Tuesdays. We've been through some stuff together, so it's always good to catch up with them.
And we want to thank our friends at Dr. Pepper. They are huge sponsors of what we do at DawgNation. They're also huge fans of college football. Dr. Pepper helping get that interview with Ladd McConkey to you today. Want to thank them. They had the Pepper Portal set up before the Georgia and Texas game. It was a two-way screen between Athens and Austin where fans got to talk a little smack. I think the Dogs got the best of it at the end of the day.
I would say that they did. And I think Ladd McConkey for doing interviews like that. I told whoever was doing the interview, I said, I'll tell you what, you couldn't have picked a better spokesperson to represent the University of Georgia than Ladd McConkey.
It was kind of funny at the beginning of that. He gets on, he sees you, he goes, oh, it's Mike Griffith again.
That's
Yeah,
right.
He's having to make the rounds. There's a little comfort in seeing your face.
Oh, yeah. I said, oh, my gosh, 10 minutes with the great Ladd McConkey, you know. And, you know, it's funny because we do go back, and there was a time when Ladd was that guy just chipping away, trying to get on the field. And it just seemed like overnight, all of a sudden, he was unstoppable. All of a sudden, he was shaking everybody. I'll never forget when Kirby Smart said there's not one player that can replace Brock Bowers when Brock went out, and Ladd goes for about 160 yards, almost as if Ladd was like, oh, yeah, Coach, I'll show you what I can do with Brock out. So those two together, though, what a 1-2 punch and what a dimension for Georgia. Just wish they'd have been a little bit healthier in that 2023 SEC title game. If those guys were 100%, Dawgs still be – they probably would have three-peated. I really believe
or if the playoff was expanded, because you saw what Ladd did against FSU. That run, they still play it every time on the big board before every Georgia home game. All right, going to take another quick break here. When we come back, we've got Mike's 30,000 view. We're going to talk college football playoff and SEC championship. We also have my boots on the ground to get to. Before we do that, though, I want to thank one of our new sponsors here in On the Beat. Retro Roofers have become sponsors here. Retro Roofers, you think of like, what's the deal? What Retro Roofers, what does that mean? Well, they are called Retro Roofers because they pay homage to a time where business was done in person and customer relationships were more important than a business deal. So they bring roofs back to life, providing quality, uncomplicated services that customers can appreciate. They will do residential roofs, commercial roofs, roof repair. The Retro Roofers are the folks, and you can see they have been seen on HGTV. Only install architectural shingles, and they register with a GAF Golden Pledge warranty on every project at no additional cost. They are part of the GAF President's Club. What that means is they do the best job, and they are recognized for doing the best job. So check out their video page at retroroofers.com. You can get a full education on how to properly install a roof and see the shortcuts other contractors are taking. So thanks for Retro Roofers for being a part of our program today. And with that, it is time for Mike's 30,000-foot view. All right, Mike, time for your 30,000-foot view. We look at what happened in the SEC this week. Down goes Bama to Oklahoma.
Boy, I didn't see that coming. You know, I thought Ty Simpson was playing better football than anybody in the country. It's a good reminder of what Kirby Smart said today. Humility is 1 week away. Ty Simpson looked mortal. Couple intercept, pick 6 in that game. Oklahoma Sooners make it 2 in a row over Oklahoma. Somebody says to me, Mike, what is it? Alabama can't beat Oklahoma. Oklahoma can't beat Texas. Texas can't beat Georgia. I said, listen, man.
Georgia can't beat Bama. So
welcome to the SEC. I mean, it's just how it goes. These teams are so balanced. But here's the long and short of it is it does open the door for Georgia to potentially play in the SEC championship game. There's a bunch of tiebreakers out there. We'll have to see. The easiest path for Georgia now to get in the SEC championship game is if Texas A&M were to lose to Texas and Austin, or if Alabama were to lose at Auburn, Georgia would be in. There's a couple other tiebreakers in a 3-way tie, but you'd need some teams to beat other teams. Bottom line is this league is something else. We saw South Carolina take a 30-3 lead at Texas A&M, which I thought was great coaching. They were beating A&M pretty bad last year, and then A&M comes all the way back and wins 31-30, and everybody wants to fire Shane Beamer. Hey, that's the same guy that coached in the first half.
Fired in the same game.
I mean, my goodness, it's the same guy that got you up by 27 over the number 3 team in the. It's a little crazy right now. I think South Carolina, they were beating Alabama in the fourth quarter. We know about Shane Beamer. He was here under Kirby Smart. But we know about the balance of the league. I mean, my goodness, A&M only beat Arkansas by 3 points. Arkansas doesn't have a win in the league yet. So from top to bottom, that's the way this league is. It's going to be interesting to see how the rankings look when they come out Tuesday night. I do believe Georgia will be number 4 and Texas Tech will be 5. But Cody, here's what I wonder about. Next week when Georgia plays the Charlotte 49ers, Texas Tech's going to play a Power 4 team in West Virginia. Would the committee dare drop Georgia just because they're playing a bad team at this stage of the season? I don't put anything past them, so I don't think we can get comfortable with any ranking. I think Kirby Smart said it best. He wants to play every game that he can. He wants to win every game possible. He just keeps the formula that simple.
And Kirby was asked today, it's a hard question to ask because you say, hey, do you want to skip the SEC championship? You think back to last year, Georgia loses Carson Beck in that game, and there's no right answer Kirby can give in that situation. He's not going to say, yeah, we'd love to skip it.
Well, I mean, if you could get a number 4 seed and get a first-round bye without having to play an extra game, that's what looks good on paper. But Kirby Smart is a former SEC player, and SEC championships mean something to him. You hang banners for SEC titles. Maybe other conferences don't care as much, but we just got done explaining why this conference is so special. And the fact is, Georgia's been to 7 out of the last 8 under Kirby Smart, 4 in a row. If he goes again, it'll be 5 in a row. That'll match Spurrier of the 1990s. That's something we thought nobody could possibly do, much less without divisional play, and now with Texas and Oklahoma. So the selfish part of me wants to see the Dogs go to the SEC championship game and have that opportunity to make history. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what we want.
Right.
It's going to work out the way it works out, and Kirby's going to have Georgia ready for whatever the path is.
Yeah, and if they get into the game, he's not going to start the second string. He's going to get in there and want to be raising the trophy at the end of the day. So it could be real interesting. Yeah, I am interested to see what the College Football Playoff Committee does next week, like you said, after the Charlotte game, to see if they would scoot.
Well, they dropped Ole Miss last week. This is why this comes up.
Yeah, after beating Citadel, right?
Yeah, the Citadel, 49-0. And I actually asked Lane Kiffin on the teleconference, I said, I didn't see your game, Coach, but do you guys make some mistakes? Should you have scored 70, 75? And he said, you did a really good job with what they call gaslighting. Didn't really bite on that. He said, well, they did play a ranked team. If it was the other way around, you'd like to see it go your way. And I said, well, I think it has been the other way around for you, and it didn't. And then I asked him about the 9-game schedule, and that's when he got fired up. He said, all the schedule strength does, he said, he doesn't see where it helps you in the rankings yet. He said, but it does get coaches fired. And he pointed out that 5 of the top 10 schedule strengths going into Saturday's game fired their coaches. So schedule strength, not all it's cracked up to be unless you're winning those games, Cody.
Right. If you're losing them, it is a dangerous place to be. All right, you brought up Lane Kiffin. Ole Miss beats Florida, but all the talk was about, is he going to be in orange and blue next year? Your thoughts at this moment about Lane Kiffin in Florida?
I think he's going to Florida. He hasn't signed, as of today, when we're doing the show, he has not signed his contract extension. We saw Mike Elko. Boy, talk about the timing of that. Right. They're down 30-3 at halftime, and they're flashing a graphic on the bottom that he signed a new extension with A&M. I was kind of hoping A&M would lose just because of that. Plus, I think Mike Elko's kind of turned into a bit of a media bully now that he's winning games there. And I always root against the media bullies. At least Kirby tells you the truth. He's not a bully. He just shoots straight. Elko looks like he's leaning on people. Don't be asking about next year. I mean, don't tell me what to ask. Right. Anyway, point being, I think that Lane Kiffin's going to end up at Florida. He says he loves Ole Miss. He does. But I think his family wants to be in Florida. That's just the people that I've talked to, and I've talked to people on both sides. Look, Ole Miss is going to give him whatever he wants. They're going to pay him a king's ransom. They'll pay him Kirby Smart money. They'll give him all the NIL money. They already take care of him and his family. It's a beautiful area. He likes it a lot. But Florida's different. And if you're Lane Kiffin and you've proven you can rebuild that program and win, why not try to go to a place and match one of the greatest coaches ever, Steve Spurrier? He wears that visor. He says that's part out of homage to Steve Spurrier. He likes being the play caller on the sideline. The Gators want to have their greatness back. They're promising them the moon as well. Now, there will be a degree of scrutiny that goes with that, Cody, that I don't know that Lane's prepared for. But if that's where he's comfortable and that's where he wants to be, he needs to take advantage of that opportunity and jump through that window. Because that's what life is really all about, is being willing to jump through those windows of opportunities and take a chance at greatness. Like Kirby was selling to those recruits. You want to come to Georgia, you want to play where it's tougher, you want to play where there's greater challenges, because ultimately there's usually greater rewards.
Now, if he does go, it's going to be there's going to be some awkward press conference moments because he's going to be asked about it until he goes.
He doesn't have a problem with awkward. I was at Tennessee when he left late that night, and everybody was lighting mattresses on fire. He doesn't have a problem with awkward. He got fired on a tarmac at USC. Lane Kiffin has no problems making a spectacle of himself. I still remember his sister telling a story when he was younger. They used to call him Lane the Pain. Probably not a surprise to you. But the thing was, he would get sent to the principal's office always talk his way out of trouble. I think that's a skill that Lane Kiffin has to this day, to the point where him and Greg Sankey look like fast friends all the time. I think Sankey's afraid of what Lane's going to say, and Lane wants to stay in Sankey's good graces. So that's one of those curious, fun relationships when you see Lane and Greg Sankey at SEC Media Days. And Lane Kiffin, let's face it, he's a colorful figure. He's entertaining, and I think he brings some personality, and Kirby Smart's here for it. Kirby Smart goes along with it. He's like, yeah, he texts Lane. You know, he plays off Lane's jokes and takes all of his humor, and then he goes out and shuts him down the fourth quarter and embarrasses him.
All right, it is time now. We're talking about superstar and celebrity coaches. How about just some celebrities? We'll touch on it and Boots on the Ground. It's something we did last year at Texas where Kirby Smart, after the game, said, we didn't come here to take pictures or do the superstar stuff. Well, I'm there to take pictures. And it was a star-studded affair on Saturday night in Athens. I was doing a little TMZ, right? I get to play the guy filming all the celebrities. So here's what we caught. There's Matthew McConaughey looking very sweaty. I don't know what private jet he was on. It must have been hot in there.
And he always wears that jacket. I mean, was it that cold out? I guess
and that jacket's very bad luck against Georgia. He needs to know that.
He needs to change that up a little bit. But, yeah, he's a superstar. The ladies love him, some Matthew McConaughey.
So, we got Matthew McConaughey, one of those guys out there. There's some other country superstars who we've come to know and expect at Georgia games. Luke Bryan was in attendance. I did not lay eyes on Luke Bryan. I did lay eyes on that man, Jason Aldean, who has already had one concert in Sanford Stadium. He'll be doing it again coming up early next year. But Jason Aldean in the house. He was on one of those field suites at the end of the end zone.
Yeah, I gotta like that. It's always fun when the celebrities come out for the big game. I know the little Athens Regional Airport was so busy. I think we had a story on AJC about that. I think they had to shut it down for a little while. They said Texas fans bring really big airplanes.
Yes, they had to park some of them in Winder, and those guys had to shuttle in. So one country star is another country star, Megan Maroney, getting to meet with Uga. Megan Maroney, we put a
local.
Yes, we put a little. She was a former, I think, KD up there on Millage Avenue, not too far from here. But yeah, she's got a great career going. Quavius Marshall, otherwise known as Quavo, of course. It's like a Tuesday in Quavo is in Athens, so really cool. Some of the other, I saw Chase Elliott, NASCAR's most popular driver, roaming around the sidelines. Brett Baer from Fox News, one of the guys I saw roaming around on the sideline. So it was a star-studded affair. Always kind of fun to get the big names out there. Peyton Manning, I did not get a shot of him. Do you know who this is?
I do not.
I did not know this. Kendra Scott of Kendra Scott Jewelry, very, very famous. She was there with Zach Brown. I didn't see Zach Brown with her at that moment, but there you go. Kendra Scott, that's why she's got like 3 necklaces on. She is a multi-millionaire from selling some very expensive jewelry.
I thought maybe there was something to do with the Texas NIL dealer or something.
Yeah, and Georgia had this is the guy from Widespread Panic who sang the national anthem, and pardon me for not knowing his name as well. But it was a packed house on the sideline, a really fun kind of atmosphere in Athens. All right, let's get to some of the boots on the ground stuff that wasn't so fun. Some injuries happening in the game. C.J. Allen, one of the guys who came out, he limped off. I got some video of him moving to the locker room, and Kirby gave an update on C.J. today.
Yeah, it looks like week to week for CJ. Nothing you want to take a chance on. You know, the glass half full was Chris Cole came in, Justin Williams, Raylan Wilson. Some other guys had some opportunities to step up in his absence and actually played really well. I think Chris Cole had 6 tackles coming in.
Yeah, you had to pick a position group that was deep enough to sustain an injury. Now, C.J. Allen, really, really, really good player.
Team leader.
But you talk about even a guy like Zayden Walker now coming on in that linebacker room, a lot of good linebackers at Georgia. One of the other injuries that we saw on Saturday was Chauncey Bowens go down late in the fourth quarter in this game. This is video of Chauncey on the ground. Kirby sounded a little more optimistic about Chauncey Bowens.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's going to be anything serious, but again, another guy that maybe you want to give a little rest to against Charlotte. Look, you got a lot of other great backs. You know, it's Cash Jones last game. I think we all want to see Cash Jones get in the end zone once or twice. Dwight Phillips is a guy that Kirby says deserves carries. He's worked really hard. Rod Robinson with the carry against Texas, so let's keep an eye on that. Let's see if Rod gets a little bit of work. And of course, Nate Frazier right now, he's hauling the rock as good as anyone on the team.
Yeah, this is the beauty of this Charlotte game is you can get a lot of guys reps, and you can get those starters in and out and get them on the sidelines with their feet up. At least those guys who aren't seniors who are looking forward to their senior day. All right, final thing, since it is senior day here against Charlotte coming up on Saturday, has a little something to share with you. Oscar Delp, one of the guys who met with the media today, and my history with Oscar Oscar Delp goes way, way back. So I was going through our DawgNation YouTube channel. I said, let's look up Oscar Delp's commitment, October of 2021. And I'll let you take a listen because I was working somewhere else at the time. But I hosted Oscar Delp's commitment ceremony. Take a listen to my part of the broadcast that was then on DawgNation. It is Oscar Delp. He's going to make his big college decision live here on Fox 5 tonight. It's a pleasure to be here. You can see the hats up there. Michigan, Georgia, South Carolina, and Clemson. He'll be making the call in just a minute. So it was a long time ago, October 2021. He looked much younger in that video. Of course, Oscar puts on the Georgia hat and never looks back.
Yeah, you got to like that. The guy's had a great career. I mean, I remember the first time he was pressed into action in the clutch against the Ohio State. Remember this? Darnell Washington got hurt earlier in that game, and this freshman Oscar Delp gets pressed into action. You're like, who is this guy? And really did a good job. It really came through for the Bulldogs when they needed it, and every play mattered in that win over Ohio State. I'll never forget that one.
Mom wiping away some tears at signing day. There's going to be some tears on the field. Kirby Smart couldn't say enough good things about Oscar Delp. Oscar's one of those guys who came in at the time. You had Darnell Washington and Brock Bowers, and Brock was only a sophomore, or he was a freshman making his name at that time when he committed. So he was only a year behind him. He knew he was going to have to sit and wait a little bit, and did that beautifully.
Well, and he said, look, when you want to be the best, you play with the best. You know, these are guys that are going to challenge you every day. And, you know, I don't think it was a coincidence that right after Oscar went, Chris Cole goes. These are guys that go against each other every single day of practice, number one. Number two, I think Kirby wanted Chris Cole in there to hear a senior talking about what senior day meant, because I feel like Chris Cole is a gatekeeper. I think he's going to be a leader in this program in the coming years, and I think it was important for him to sit in there and listen to Oscar Delp talk about the importance of senior day and what he's been able to do for the program over the years, because I believe he'll be passing that leadership torch down to guys like Chris Cole.
Chris Cole, and he's really well spoken. He owned the podium, which you like, is as a guy who just feels comfortable up there, and he's going to not get the moment, definitely not too big for Chris Cole. As we start to wrap up, Georgia and Texas. Now, we will mention one thing. I thought in the second quarter, it got to be some ugly football for a little bit. Georgia punt, interception, but Georgia bounces back. Do you make anything of that other than it's just Texas on the other side?
Yeah, I mean, Texas is a good football team. I mean, Texas has a great defense. You take a look at the stats, and they were among the best. I think they were number 2 in the nation against the run coming in. And, hey, they got players, too. When you look at Texas, those guys get off the bus. They look every bit as good as Georgia. Not many teams going to measure up to Georgia in the beauty contest department when you see these guys fill out their pads. But the Texas Longhorns, they got those 5 stars. They got guys that are conditioning. They got future NFL players. They're just not coached or prepared as well as the Georgia Bulldogs right now.
And does that go kind of looping back to the top of the show where we talked about what makes Georgia different? Is that it in the fourth quarter to you? You know, you got a team that can hang with you for a little while, but the fourth quarter is no coincidence. That's when Georgia put up 21 points.
Well, this Georgia team's tested, and I kind of called them out last week and said, hey, they weren't ready for the moment in prime time against Alabama. Alabama came out and stung them with 14 points and 2 touchdowns on their opening 2 drives, and the Dogs weren't able to come back. This time, Georgia was prepared for prime time. They were ready to go under the lights against a team that thought they were going to get revenge, a team they knew they could beat. They beat them twice last year in the regular season in Austin, once again in Atlanta. Now they've added Athens, to their cap. So I think it was a matter of Georgia handling the moment. I think it's a matter of Georgia having played better competition, having to come from behind in some of those games. I mean, yeah, Texas had won 4 in a row, but that's Georgia out there. That ain't Vandy. That ain't Kentucky. Okay, so I think that was a big part of it, was Georgia's preparation, having played a tougher schedule and come from behind. And they came from behind again. 7 out of 8 games this year, the Bulldogs had to come from behind, and they won 6 times in those occasions.
All right, so 1 or 2. The 4th and 1 where they go for it kind of deep in their own territory, or the onside kick? Which one's more important?
4th and 1. Look, Texas has just scored. It's 14-10. The momentum has shifted. It's 4th and 1 at your own 36-yard line.
Yeah, the book ain't saying go there.
I mean, they're in field goal range if they get a stop. And Kirby's like, I'm not going to use the word, but the heck with it. Let's go for it. He said, I wasn't going to go for it. They moved the ball while they're measuring and reviewing. He's on the headset with Bobo talking to him. And Kirby's not going to go for it, but Bobo tells him the play he's going to run, and Kirby's like, You know what? I like it. Let's do it. So they run that play-action pass. Beautiful pass. Think about it. The snap. Here, Drew Bilbo had his finger sliced open last week. He's got the good snap. Gunner, the play fake. Sells the play fake. Chauncey, leaking out of the backfield. Gunner, the throw, it's accurate. Chauncey, making the catch. A lot of things got to go right to execute that 4th and 1. And Kirby Smart believed in his team and believed in Gunner Stockton to make that play. They execute. And then a few plays later, it's 4th and 4, and Kirby's leaving the team out there. He says, we weren't going to go for it. But there's Texas. They jump. Okay, thank you very much for the first down. They score a touchdown. Now it's 21-10, and that's when Kirby turns the screw on Sark and says, you know what, let's run that onside kick. And you saw Sark's reaction on the sideline. We can't say what he mouthed, but he was surprised, to say the least.
Yeah, it's fun. Those guys are still going to be friends of the internet. It's always fun to twist your friend a little bit.
Yeah.
Good stuff right there. All right, that's going to do it for On the Beat this week. Thanks, Mike, for being with us, and thank you all for watching as well. Got Georgia and Charlotte. We'll have some great boots on the ground coming up next week, and then we've got a short week after that as we get ready for Georgia Tech inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium. All right, that's going to do it. We'll see you right back here next Monday night on The Beat.